Have you ever wondered what makes a good thumbnail? Well, as a YouTuber, I definitely have. So in this video, I'm going to go over a bunch of popular thumbnails, mostly related to gaming and game dev, because that's where I spend my time on YouTube. And then I'm going to try to make some thumbnails of my own. So I'm going to start by just searching game dev. And as we scroll down here, you'll see some very immediate trends. The first of which being text, obviously. High contrast text that stands out above the image. This text is usually less than 5 words, can sometimes have outlines, a drop shadow, a second outline, and this funky black blur behind it that makes it stand out more from the background. And then a lot of these will have foreground and background elements, often highlighting or outlining the foreground elements and obscuring or blurring the background. And you'll notice that a lot of these thumbnails use yellow or some other high contrast color to stand out from everything else you're seeing. They're also using a lot of high saturation colors to avoid being the same color as the YouTube background. Now, if we go to the gaming trending section and check out their thumbnails, there will be some differences, but a lot of the same trends as well. You'll see the high contrast text, and you'll see the same concept of a foreground image being outlined or put in front of everything else. And because gaming channels usually rely on the personality of the person playing the game, and less so on attractive thumbnails, these probably aren't the best example to go by. A channel that I think has mastered thumbnail design is Game Theory. Love them or hate them, you got to admit, their text is very easy to read. They have 1 or 2 foreground elements that tell you enough to get you interested, but not enough to really know what the episode is about. Same with the text. But someone else who really impresses me with their thumbnails is also someone who makes me cringe a little bit.
Fat, so I think I'm gonna call him your mom. And is it just me, or is Big Chunk looking kinda thick?
Danny is kind of the PewDiePie of game development. But he's really good at thumbnail design. With all of these different elements that we've seen from different thumbnails, he does all of them. High contrast yellow text, with a black outline and a drop shadow. A blurred out background, with foreground elements that are double outlined, and have that weird black fuzz behind them that make them stand out more. And all of his thumbnails have motion and are colorful in a way that won't blend in with either light mode or dark mode of YouTube. Because at the end of the day, those are the things that matter for a thumbnail. They stand out and catch your attention by being colorful or interesting in some way, and they tell the viewer what the video is about, but don't give them enough information to spoil the video. But now, it's time to get to work and make my own thumbnails. Beginning with this one. This is my store icon for my game, Energy Supply. It's a clicker game where you're trying to produce enough power to keep the planet going without killing it. It's probably one of my favorite games, and the video didn't get a lot of attention, so I really want to redo this one. So I started by trying to apply some of the things that I was seeing, notably the double outline. And I stole the color from the electric symbol to try to make some things match for some reason. But in the end, no matter how much I tried, it just didn't really work out. So instead I tried to add some clicker elements to it by making some pop-up text showing the numbers. And I gave all of them black outlines and drop shadows. But I kept them white because I wanted them to stand out less than the title. And I'm actually really happy with this title because it's about as clickbaity as you can get without being too clickbaity. So I titled this video, Was It a Good Idea? And the thumbnail is Clicker for a Game Jam, which will hopefully make people wonder if the clicker game for a game jam was a good idea, and then click on the video to find out what happened. So that's thumbnail number 1. Next was for a video for a game that I made called Icebergs. It was made for the same game jam as Energy Supply, but just for a different round. So I began by playing the game to get some screenshots that might be useful. And then I blurred out that background to make it a little less clear, and put the text, asteroids, but it's horror. Again with a question mark to hopefully make the audience curious. Hopefully. And again I went for that double outline of black and white, but I wanted horror to stand out the most. So I changed it to red and gave it a little gradient. And in retrospect, while watching this video back, the but it's really should have been a little bit bigger because they kinda, well, when you zoom out, they're not really as noticeable. And then the final thumbnail was for a game I made for a game jam back in September, called Surtur, The Edge of Ragnarok. And while this video did pretty well, and probably better than the game itself did, I do think it could do better. So I played the game a little bit to get a screenshot, put it into the thumbnail, and then gave it a little bit of blur. And like my thumbnail for my Ludum Dare video, I decided to put the character in the foreground. And then with some text and a different font, I got this much done. And then, to try to get people to look at the thumbnail, I decided to add a vignette, which will hopefully draw people's eyes to the center. And then, because nothing's ever good enough, I took that text out and replaced it for something a little blockier, giving it a black outline and drop shadow. And this, right here, is really good. It's got a little black outline that meshes in with the character, and Recreating and Game Jam stand out really well. But because I don't have a good reason, I decided to make it look artistically better by making the text match the character, even though I think this stands out much less than that yellow text did. That yellow text is really good. Now these aren't perfect, and they're definitely not as interesting as Danny's thumbnails, but I do think they're much better than some of my old thumbnails. So I'll consider that a win. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to do the whole YouTube thing. And a huge thank you to my patrons. Because of them, my coffee cup is full. And I can even afford sugar. As always, the links to the cool places that I hang out are down below, and if you decide to click on one, then I'll see you there.